So, welcome all of you joining us this evening for week three's provocation session, and an especially warm welcome to you, Pedro. Thank you for joining us this evening. So for those of you who don't know Pedro, he's the co-founder of Sistema B, which is a social organization which is striving to develop an economy where success is measured by the well-being of people, society, and nature. Pedro is also a board member of the Wellbeing Economy Alliance Trust and has been a global ambassador of the B Corp Movement, which is a global movement of people using business as a force for good. And he's also the co-founder of Emprendia, which is Argentina's first B Corp. So today, Pedro will be speaking about the need for businesses to direct their purpose away from extracting profits towards achieving social and environmental goals in order to allow consumers, suppliers, and investors to all be part of large-scale solutions to our current crises. So with that, I'll hand the session over to you, Pedro.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, congratulations for this festival.
Thank you.
My personal desires would have been to be together, meeting each of you and trying to resonate of what are your searches, the kind of solutions that you're looking for. And but this is what we get. And let me just share with you two starting points. One, which is my firm belief that there is a huge potential for transformation at a very, very large scale, at a global level, if we consider that businesses are the most numerous of all human organizations after family. But also, if you think about it, commercial decisions are the most numerous of all human beings on a daily basis. Any kind of commercial decisions. So a first starting point is that if we consider the common good in these two huge universes, and we try to restructure the common good as the main purpose of markets, everybody has a huge opportunity to have an influence on a daily basis. That's one starting point. On the other hand, I'm an Argentine. I live about 1,500 kilometers south of the South Atlantic subtropical rainforest, which used to be the second largest rainforest after the Amazon. But there's only 7.8% left as it used to be. So that means only 7.8% of the life producing ecosystem is there. That's when the company Guayaki, one of the founding B Corps in the world, decided to find a solution. As it went away, how can we make that forest to return back? As we all know, once you have deforestation at that scale, in the name of feeding the world and forgetting that we also have to feed the earth, you also have impoverishment of all kinds, and mainly of the people who depend on those ecosystems. And that's the case of indigenous communities and peasant communities, the landless movement of Brazil. So the main purpose for which Guayaki was created was basically to get it back into life. And that means the main purpose is the regeneration of ecosystems, of the sense of communities, and of individuals. Now that purpose becomes the most relevant purpose of the individuals who work for the company, but it also becomes the core business of the company, and it's protected in the mission statement of the articles of incorporation of the company. Now, why is the purpose so important? Because that's where you actually build all the complicity for your company. Now, let me just briefly tell you about the company. The company actually is basically an organic beverage company it's an energy drink based on yerba mate which is a leaf from that particular ecosystem. So the more leaves you can harvest without cutting the trees, the more you can regenerate the ecosystem. So the more you can sell those products, the more you regenerate that ecosystem. And at the same time, the more you actually reconstruct the fabric of the communities that depend on the ecosystem. So basically what Guayaki does is to source the yerba mate from its suppliers, indigenous communities in Argentina, Brazil, and in Paraguay, and from the campesino or peasant communities. These are all small producers. And it pays from 40 to 60% more the market value of the yerba mate. So it becomes an incentive for the suppliers to continue planting the native species, where normally you get, well, single cultures, monocultures, soya, pine, eucalyptus, basically wheat, and basically the monoculture alternatives, if you want. And what does Guayaki do with that? It converts that into its products. Now, once you have that purpose, you start a journey. I'm a very, very small investor. I'm an activist investor. So as an investor, let me tell you, first of all, the results and why I'm that kind of investor in Guayaki. 6 years after the original investment, the results were at the end of 2018, almost 200,000 acres or 60,000 hectares, more or less the size of Paris, that have been regenerated. Almost above 1,000 families reconnected as communities, and an increase of 600% of the market value, the share value of as a investor in those 6 years. So it's good business means good business for society, for the planet, and for the shareholders. At the same time, it's not a CSR, it's not a corporate social responsibility logic where you make money here and then you actually donate money for reforestation or whatever, or to communities. This is the way you embed in the nature of the company the purpose that you have, the purpose that actually, awakens your passions. It's the sense of the meaning for which you do stuff. You see, it's that energy that actually excites you, but it excites others. If the purpose is just something rational, just say that's not the purpose. Find something else. It has to move your hearts as individuals in the company, but it also has to move the hearts of the suppliers, of the clients, of the investors, of the employees. It's the opportunity of moving hearts in a direction that aligns you with results. But at the same time, you are a player to build a community, a purpose-driven community, which finds the market as a wonderful opportunity to pursue that same goal. Now, that's the first element of Guayaki. And we could just say that's good enough, which is wonderful. But a second element of this kind of company is that you need to measure your overall impact on the workers, with all the clients, with the customers, of course, with the planet, and you need to be accountable and transparent in your governance structure. For that, there is an impact measurement tool, which is called the B Impact Assessment, that enables you to actually have the equivalent of rigor to financial measurement, but in your impact on society and the environment at the same time. If you have 80 points out of 200, then of course you're invited to become a B Corp, you see. And there's a global organization, which is B Lab in the US, which is the certifying organization, which is an independent third party that says they are the kind of company which is called a B Corp. You see, it's like the certifying agency. However, it's not like most of the certification systems. It has a measurement tool, which are over 200 questions, which are the typical questions that you have both in business but also in society. So the ones that we ask ourselves, like for example, the wage gap. Do you have a policy for wage gaps? Or the gender equality? Do you have a policy? And depending on the extent to which that policy actually navigates, you have more or less points or scores. So it's the kind of Socratic question asking tool that enables a lot of innovation. Thanks to that impact measurement tool, Guayaki has gone through different journeys once it had that purpose. And let me just give you some examples. The carbon footprint. Guayaki had basically a distribution that we weren't able to lower down our footprints in North America, basically, because although the ingredients for the products come from South America, the major markets are Canada and the United States, and also Chile.
Oh, Pedro, you just muted yourself.
I didn't touch it. I'm sorry about that. It just went to load.
You're good.
So,
no, don't
so
worry.
what happened with the experience of the carbon footprint was that we decided to create a new company, which is a distribution company for the last mile. So the convenience stores and so we could reach without a negative carbon footprint, we could reach the different vending or sales points. So we bought 253 electric vehicles from General Motors, and so that's a big step forward. But we then realized that we had to make a special focus for another, I would say, level of regeneration. So the drivers of those vehicles are ex-convicts. So Guayaki actually offers the trust for their first job after their incarceration. So that's another way that you can see how the journey starts, basically finding new opportunities. But of course, there are other people who want to join the purpose. So almost 2,000 volunteers in the university campuses started to say, hey, we want to be part of the purpose, and we need the example, just like what I'm doing right now. You need the example to say it's possible to find in business, restructuring business, the possibility of pursuing your goals. So you have 2,000 volunteers, just like if it were an NGO. So they're also promoting this. Now, keep in mind that the price of the Guayaki drinks are compete with the same price as companies which have more chemical, I would say, alternatives and energy drinks like Red Bull. So whoever can buy that, those other energy drinks can buy Guayaki. Now, why does that happen? Why can we actually compete, if you want, with in the same price if we're paying so much more to the suppliers? Well, basically, because the promoters of Guayaki are the promoters of the cause, of the purpose. And they just give the example of Guayaki. So it's a company that grows over 25% every year, over 40,000 selling points. And you have even musicians that have joined in a platform called Come to Life that promotes, basically they promote the cause, the purpose, but also a journal like the Rolling Stones covers Guayaki because of the purpose. And just let me share the last novelty of this week. Because one, is in this journey that you have to say, well, we'll internalize every single cost that we find that should be internalized in our cost structure. So we realized that the rainfalls that come to the South Atlantic forest, and that's, southern Brazil, northeast of Argentina, east of Paraguay, the rainfall in almost approximately 15% comes through the flying rivers from the Amazon. So now we signed an agreement with an organization that works with 16 ethnic groups in the Amazon. And we have incorporated for the first time the value of the rainfall, but that money goes to an initiative, an Amazonian indigenous leadership and innovation initiative that so what we just trust is in their empowerment and in their development. So this is a little bit the story of B Corp. There are over 3,300 B Corps in the world of all kinds of industries, of all kinds of sizes. It can be a startup, it can be a huge company. But what I want to basically stress is that it's a wonderful opportunity to reorganize the economy, building a new sector which is an alternative sector to what we all know of capitalism, and it helps us evolve in solving basically our large-scale societal environmental problems, so short and long term. Thank you.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much, Pedro. I actually have a question. Would you say that B Corps are kind of one of the leading ways in which we could go about solving social inequalities and economic inequalities? And what do you think?
Well, I'm convinced about that. Sorry, Maddie, but I'm convinced about that because I just shared my experience. But if you want, I could just spend, I don't know, a full month, describing how those problems are sorted out. Why? Because once you restructure your company, once you restructure the reason, the raison d'être of a business, by actually solving the main problems of society, you see, then the entire business evolves in that direction. What does that mean? That once you have, you become part of a solution, then you enable the suppliers, you enable the clients, you enable the employees, you enable the investors all together to be part of that solution. So it's not only the company, you see, it's a new social organism, I would say, yeah, that operates like if it were a combination of what the traditional businesses, where you have to have profit, of course, and you have to have profit to make it sustainable, but you combine it with the purposes that we normally hear from NGOs and politics, you see? So you evolve into a new way of organizing economically and sustainably.
Thank you. Poppy, you have a question. Would you like to come on stage to ask?
Come on. Hello.
Hello.
Pedro, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for talking to us today and describing your company and how the people in your market in North America are so fond of it that they will evangelize for you. So you don't have to spend money on promotion and advertising. They'll do it for you. Brilliant. My question was, I remember back in 2004, I spent an interminable evening in the cinema watching a film called The Corporation, which argued that the corporation, the way it is structured, is psychopathic. It's a psychopathic player in society. What you are describing is reshaping the corporation completely. So actually, Pedro, I've ended up with two questions. Sorry. One is, shouldn't we legislate the psychopathic corporation out of existence? Shouldn't we make laws requiring corporations to have the good of the environment, the good of society, the good of its stakeholders built into its constitution? Shouldn't we do that? And then my next question, and that's much more theoretical, and feel free to ignore it, is once we've done that, do we still have capitalism?
Beautiful question. Thank you very much, Poppy. Actually, because of time, I didn't mention the third element of a B Corp, which is basically expanding what in legal language we call the fiduciary liability clause. And let me go back to that because it sounds very legalistic. Way back in colonial times, when basically the investor would support the expeditionary to go to India or to go to Indonesia and Holland, they would ask a special condition clause, which was above any legislation, above anything, as long as you just abide with the laws in those countries, just first protect my interest. And that's translated into first you give me back the money and obviously the yields of that money, right? So that was the contract that the expeditionaries had during colonial times. That became like a practice, and that clause became part of the evolution of what we call the limited liability companies, right? And it became embedded. Today, if we translate that into modern words, it's the shareholder primacy. It's the shareholder interest prior to all other interest.
Now, maximizing shareholder interest. Yeah.
Exactly. It's maximizing the shareholder interest. So, and of course, you have a limit, and that's the legislation of that societies decide to sort of limit the freedom of enterprise, right? And that's the constraints of any market. Now, what happens is that model of economic organization during the Industrial Revolution expanded throughout the world. So by and large, I would say that most of the countries in the world have that nature, that I would say business DNA, right? So what do the B Corps do? Individually, when they declare, once they are invited to become a B Corp, they make amendments to their bylaws. And just like elevating their purpose to commit to a positive social environmental impact as a purpose, but also to expand that fiduciary liability to all the stakeholders. And in your part of the world, you basically are speaking about stakeholder governance, basically. And so that enables the management and the boards to balance the interest. So you can balance the long and short-term interest of all the stakeholders, the employees, the planet, the clients, the consumers, the communities in general. That makes, again, the B Corp an example of how you make a change. Now, even if you have that kind of, I would say, amendment to the Articles of Incorporation, you still need a new legal status granted by legislation. And that's what also up in English or in Britain or in the US and Canada, you name as the benefit corporation status. And you have that status already granted in 34 states of the United States, in Italy at the national level, and then you have it in Colombia, and you have it in Ecuador, in Latin America. And France has something close to it, which is called entreprise à mission, and it basically elevates again, you see, the purpose of the company to solve social and environmental problems, I would say. Now, that legislation we need all over the world because it grants clarity, legal clarity throughout the entire world. And going back to your second question, of course, a new business DNA is crucial, but it doesn't make it all. We need a new economic DNA. We all come from fragments. We all come from the schizophrenia of here we make money, here we do the good in among NGOs, and here we take it to scale through politics, as if we were separate ourselves. Or here, I make money for myself. I'm pro bono volunteer over the evenings in an NGO, and over the weekend I go to the environment. This is crazy. This is completely, it's basically schizophrenic. How can we live life 24 hours a day, 360 days a year as a holistic person? We need holistic organizations, and we need holistic economies and economic systems. And we stopped being holistic way back, I would say after Socrates. We started becoming segmented after Aristotle. But
exactly, it was Aristotle.
Yeah. And it went on, and now we're living through that, you see. So as we did that, we can also go back to become, ourselves as human beings. And I always feel that one of the most beautiful elements of connecting in business and in the market through the purpose are the three elements of positive complicity. A, being moved in every commercial decision. Two, and I know this is very Latin American, we even have that word, co-move. I know that in English you just have moved, but in Spanish you have co-moved, because you move your heart with others, right? So that's one element. Two, build community. These are times where whatever we do, we need to build the community so people feel that they belong to something, the sense of belonging. And three, build a legacy, but right from the very beginning, not wait until you're over 60 to write a testament. You see, it's build a legacy for the world and for the planet. And those three elements are the ones that you have actually in NGOs, you have in churches, you have in politics, you have in clubs, but you don't have in the market. If you build them back into the market, into the nature of markets, you humanize the economy. So, of course, there are many other tools to do that in public procurement, in bonds, in measuring progress, like instead of GDP, the Wellbeing Index, the Wellbeing budget. There's so many other tools that we can actually come up with to governments, but we need to be the example of what we see. And in business, that's the way we operate. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Poppy. Okay, someone's asked, is there a risk that B Corps could contribute to superficial CSR by businesses who don't want to commit to actual change?
Again, I really was hoping I could get that. That I would say recurring question. Well, I would tell any company not to take the risk to become a B Corp if they don't mean it. Why? There are two main types of reasons. One, once you become a B Corp, you must make public your measurements in the different areas of impact. So that goes into your website. Anyone will know about this. If you're a publicly listed company, you have to make public information of all your answers. So it's really amazing. Two, any person in the world, if they have the proof of evidence, they can go to an international council. It's called the International Standards Council, and actually make a claim because of false information, because of lack of information, whatever, of any B Corp that has already been certified. If the company is shown that there was a misintention, they're invited to leave the community of B Corps, and that affects your reputation. Third, you have on a ransom way. You have audits, so you're exposed to that as well. But that's the market mechanisms. You also have the legal mechanisms. If you are a shareholder, you can actually sue the company, the board, and the management for not abiding with the purpose of the company and for the high social and environmental standards that you're committed with. So you have I would say two universes of deterrence of any kind of, I would say, misintentions in general, you see. And of course, it's very attractive to have the brand, the B with the circle. It's very attractive because you have all kinds of benefits, commercial benefits, but also societal benefits. Just, for example, Guayaki, to have 2,000 young students in the campuses promoting the cause. It's not promoting the Guayaki, it's promoting the cause, but you have a concrete example to share. So just imagine the level of business risk that would entail if you don't do it seriously.
Yeah, thank you. Someone else has asked, how transferable is this model to other situations, such as the decimation of the Amazon rainforest? What are the barriers involved?
Well, you do have B Corps that, Guayaki does not belong to that ecosystem. What Guayaki did was to acknowledge the interdependence with the Amazon, right? So, and I'm sure that many of who are there right now in this space, I'm sure you're buying stuff that comes from the Amazon. You might want to decide not to buy those things, whatever you're buying, mostly food, mostly the standardized monoculture food. So that's in general something that anyone can be part of. But two, you have quite a few other B Corps in the Amazon and the region as such that also have the purpose of keeping the forest standing. There's now an amazing company in Colombia. Well, there are quite a few. For example, and this is beautiful also, once you belong to the community of B Corps, you share the experiences, but also the insights and the enthusiasm. And so there's a Colombian multinational, which is a organic restaurant chain in 6 countries, that their main purpose is the inclusion of single mothers in the labor markets. And they started more or less 25 years ago during the internal wars of Colombia. We met. They came to our stakeholder gatherings. We have gatherings in circles, sharing the gourd. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the sharing the gourd now any longer. You see, but anyway, but they were there with investors, with suppliers, with the caciques, with the heads of the indigenous groups in the South Atlantic forest, with academics, with our main clients, and suddenly we just invited this guy who's one of the owners, the son of the owning family, and he was so excited that today he took the experience of awarding the suppliers, awarding for regenerating ecosystems to their small women-led suppliers. So today it's called Crepes and Waffles. Today, Crepes and Waffles also awards from 40 to 60% prime price to small farmers, women farmers that commit to cleaning up their watercourses, their small little streams. They regenerating biodiversity, the soil biodiversity, and cleaning up the soil and regenerating the I would say the forest coverage. So there you have a second large company that actually enables that market, the food market, to also incorporate regeneration there. And if you go on, it's very contagious, you see, because once you show the results and you show it's possible, why not doing it?
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you. Someone else asks, what are the challenges to getting greater take-up of this model?
I didn't get that. Sorry. What are the challenges?
Sorry. What are the challenges to getting greater take-up of this model?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. Perhaps you can rephrase it.
As in, what are the challenges to getting more companies to get on board with B Corps and to take up the model that B Corps has?
Well, first of all, it's very, very hard to become a B Corp, right? And our hope is not for all the companies to become a B Corp. It's very strict, very challenging. Our hope is for all companies in the world to behave as if they were B Corps and strive and try to aim at becoming B Corps. Every 3 years, there's a new version of the assessment of your impact, and it's even more strict, and you need to be recertified. But it's always more strict for any company to become a B Corp. So I would say that where we see the scaling up of this model is in the billions or the millions, sorry, of companies that rethink why do they exist if it's only for profit or to do good for the world and the planet. So you see, these are companies that actually create the provocation, they catalyze the questions, the kind of questions that we used to have in politics and NGOs, bring them into the business, bring them into the markets, and try to align, the holistic value creation to any market player, any market decision making, any commercial decision making. I would say that there's still space for many more to become B Corps, and there's an amazing role of the youth and an amazing role of employees to actually, promote the B Corps as one of the horizons. And of course, we work with many other alliances of new economies, and we love their success. So it's a complementation. So we want them also to be successful, because that's the way we can actually move the entire economic system in a new direction, in value creation. And in my case, I personally believe very much on installing the horizon of the regeneration paradigm, basically to overcome extractivism and individualism. So once that's what I'd love for all the major companies to consider, you see. So one really neat example is the case of a big company like Danone that has over 40% of its sales already under the B Corp structure. And they have committed for 2025 to have the entire group to become a B Corp, a big Corp, B Corp. Now, what I've seen with Danone is just amazing. They are they have, just like any other B Corp, they are not perfect. We're all imperfect, right? But once you have a minimum level, you keep on in that journey of finding how you improve. And Danone has decided their main purpose has to do with one planet, one health, which is so relevant today with COVID. I mean, it's so visible. But they have called with other 18 large multinationals their commitment to regenerate biodiversity worldwide through their sourcing practices and promote organic family-led businesses that do regenerate ecosystems. So there you see how one example, it can be very, very small, the example that inspires the big ones. And of course, why the large companies are important, because you have the most numerous of human interconnections. And that's what we need to have these companies to actually install these questions and install these horizons through their value chains and through whatever universe that they imply.
Thank you. Parmjeet, would you like to come up to the stage to ask a question?
Hi there. Really inspiring talk. There are so many ideas. It can be quite mind-blowing. So NGOs are there for public good anyway. That's supposed to be their purpose. So wouldn't it make sense to try and steer them to adapt their practices and to educate about what the difficulties, what the problems are around how businesses are interacting? Because a corporation already has so much legislation in its favor that it's kind of going to be an uphill struggle, although I applaud the fact that Danone's doing it. Once it starts making that journey, I can see that the structure is helping it to find its footing on ever higher planes, so that's good. But what about starting from an NGO? What do you think?
Well, Parmjeet, thank you very much for the question. For me, we're all human beings, right? We're in the same boats, and we're experiencing this human project on Earth. So wherever we are, there's a lot that we can do. And NGOs are very much one of the so many concerns and relevant concerns that a B Corp needs to address. How you relate to NGOs. Apart from communities and apart from the vicinity and apart from social movements. But NGOs are crucial. So how transparent can you be with NGOs? How much you actually are accountable for everybody, actually for all stakeholders. So for the B Corp movement, and actually both B Lab and Sistema B in Latin America, we're NGOs. But we're the generation of NGOs that we decided that we needed to redefine success in the economy, in the market, and in business. So actually, one of the main pillars of Sistema B is civil society. And as a result, you have the International Festival of Social Innovation, where you have already over 1 million people participating in realizing that apart from politics and apart from civil society, we can also achieve the kind of goals that we have and we pursue through the business. I mean, it's expanding a new window. It's like saying, aha, we could also do that. You see, it's not only lobbying to politics or lobbying for large, with large corporations. It's a new horizon, a new window where we can also do our changes. So Sistema B is an NGO, B Lab is an NGO, and it's with many, many other global, local, and national NGOs that we are working together for this economic transition. It requires many, many efforts in so many different levels. So that's one thing. Now, on the other hand, as an NGO, I also wonder, as an NGO, again, I'm a human being with many, many hats, and I love being that, a pluralistic human being. So one thing that I always wondered, why is it that we don't have a rigorous standard, a rigorous assessment of our social, environmental, and economic impact of NGOs? You see, why is it? It's not today our task, but I wish there were efforts in that direction. So NGOs could also improve their delivery of goods and services to society. But it's not trying to, it's not trying to attack. It's just that I just feel that it would be so good for us as a Sistema B to expose ourselves to a third-party independent body that will say, hey, Sistema B is having good impacts with their employees, good impacts or sufficient impacts. and they're on that journey for improvement with employees, with their different stakeholders. It would be so good for us to have someone looking at us. We do it, of course, we have the financial audits, and we do our own, if you want, it's in-house B impact assessment for Sistema B. But you don't have a third-party independent body that says this is right. And that's what we need.
My feeling is it's something to do with funding, so that there's funding that's associated with the purpose and not given. At the moment, they have to compete with one another. So it's not really a good landscape to work together, because their livelihoods are depending on them saying that I'm better than these people there, and it's not really encouraging them to notice what these people over here are really good at doing, and how can we work together at doing whatever that is. So it's just like some kind of policy bits and pieces just need to be moved around a little bit, so that the label NGO maybe can be merged with SME, small medium enterprise can be merged with whatever, because you're focusing on the purpose, maybe. But it's easier said than done, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of space for improvement. But that inspired me to just add one comment. The whole notion of competition, that competition that excludes the other company from the market. You have to buy the other company because otherwise you're under risk, or you're not abiding with the shareholder primacy. This is also something that we challenge in the B Corp movement. We want our competition to improve. I'm invested in other companies, and we train our competition, and we do it purposely, and we explain why we are training them. Because if they exist, then we are forced to be much better. So we train them, and of course we become friends, because human beings can't, you go beyond borders once you become friends and you empathize with with the people in the competition. You see, but of course you have to be driven by a purpose for the better world. That's the energy that enables so many wonderful, wonderful new journeys.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll go now.
Thank you, Parmjit.
Thank you. We have another question. Is there a way that we as individuals can support this model?
Yeah, well, everybody. Well, one thing is we as individuals to have an assessment around ourselves. So for the time being, there's no assessment on our own impacts, but of course, we could be, we can develop that. I mean, people can develop that. But two, of course, you can take the B impact assessment, which is free, which is online, it's confidential, it's easy. You just take any of those questions and you just look at yourself, right? So if I'm understanding well, right, it's being oneself, the future that you want to build, right? Now, you can also be a citizen movement. You can be part of the citizen movement that promotes changes in business, in the market, and in the economic system as just citizens. And in fact, if you look at Extinction Rebellion, or you look at, for example, Fridays for the Future, I'm just mentioning two which are globally known, but there's so many regionally speaking or locally speaking, so many beautiful movements. Any of those causes can be pursued also through business and through the market. So it's very efficient, because you know what? You don't have to ask for a favor for others to pursue what you want. And you overcome the logic of the muscle. We're now big and we're going to be lobbying you until we get you. You see, it's not that logic. It's the liberating logic of changing the world. And at least that's the way I experience this movement, which is a citizen movement. As you can see, these are I mean, the B movement, it's a citizen movement that understands business and the market as a wonderful opportunity to pursue citizen goals or objectives and solutions. And so I would say that, again, in the case of Sistema B, it's called System B because we basically, have designed a model which is expanding alone already, where you have all kinds of players meeting in innovating market dynamics, economics, and business by getting together. So as a result, you have the festivals, you have B academics, you have Cities Can Be, you have the B Lawyers Network, you have the investors, you have the Plus B entrepreneurs. I mean, that's the way we understood as citizens how we could get back together. In fact, in our part of the world, I don't know where you all come from, but we also reacted to the polarization that we were living through in our region. The left and the right, the rich and the poor, the business and the NGOs. I don't know, you just name whatever reason to polarize. Well, we didn't think that was very effective nor efficient. And that would not enable us to, as friends, actually, and as families, be part of the solutions that we want to achieve. And we found that the market was an extraordinary opportunity for all of us to go away from the dynamics of polarization or giving more power to one end or to the other end, you see. So we could actually all join back. And for us, that was very, very relevant in when we created Sistema B in 2012. And that's the main reason for which only 1/6 of what we do at Sistema B, at the different System Bs at the national level or the local level, has to do with B Corps. Although the B Corps are the relevant structuring model that inspire the rest of the communities.
Thank you. I think it will be a final question, but do you recommend to early stage startups to come forward and pitch with an invention to be a B Corp in front of an investor? How attractive is that to investors?
Well, again, depends on the investors. You have what we call the impact investors. Those are the investors that are already being very choosy about the kind of businesses where they are willing to invest. And that's the kind of investor that we have at a company like Guayaki. I'm that kind of investor. So here you have someone, hey, hello, you see? So this is the kind of investor that I would never invest in the old economy of just making profits. I want value creation. So when you're a startup entrepreneur, look for the kind of investor that you want to be associated with. Don't associate with investor that is only looking at the maximization of its shares, of the profits. So you have to be choosy as well. Money is not only, we all are powerful if we feel that we're empowered. So an investor needs the kind of startups that want to solve, the kind of problems that we have as societies. And today we're also feeling, what's happening with COVID. I don't know up there, but my sense is that suddenly we're all seeing the interconnections between the kind of solutions that would prevent, the kind of global problems that we're witnessing as the COVID virus. So this, I wouldn't here, at least in this part of the world, there are all kinds of networks of investors for startups. And you have like a marketplace in different, depending on the country, where investors meet the triple impact value creation startups. You see, so it's human beings with other human beings that share the same vision.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Pedro. I know I found that so insightful, and I'm sure that the rest of the participants and attendees did. So if you'd like to stick around just after this presentation ends, just so maybe you could network a little bit with Pedro and with the attendees. But yeah, thank you so much for attending, Pedro, and thank you so much for that talk.
And thank you for your interest and for your coordination, Maddie.
No
Now,
worries.
what shall I do right now? Shall I just stay here?
I'll just end it now. Yeah. And then it will automatically move you back to the tables.
Thank you.
Yeah. No worries.